Welcome to this week's episode of the Inside Kingston Podcast, where experienced professionals, entrepreneurs, and community leaders based in Kingston upon Thames are invited on to share their story with us. I'm your host, Amyr Rocha-Lima.
This week's episode of the Inside Kingston Podcast is brought to you by Holland Hahn Wills, a financial planning and wealth management firm based in Kingston upon Thames. Holland Hahn Wills specialises in retirement planning for senior professionals and successful business owners. Visit hhw-uk.com to start feeling more relaxed and confident about your financial future.
Thank you for joining us for another episode of the Inside Kingston Podcast. I'm joined today by Tony Laliashvili. Tony is the founder of Super Seniors Fitness, offering fitness plans for over 60s, empowering them to keep strong, flexible, and independent. What's unique about Tony is how he's turned his lifelong passion for working with and empowering senior citizens into a mission to change how the world sees old age. And be sure to listen to the end, where Tony shares with us some tips on the mindset that will keep you fit and healthy throughout life. So whether you're interested in knowing more about fitness and well-being, or would like to know more about what it takes to run a successful independent business, then I hope you enjoy this episode of the Inside Kingston Podcast. Welcome, Tony Laliashvili, to the Inside Kingston Podcast. Tony, I'm really excited about this conversation because, well, firstly, I think your business is a great example of how focusing on a niche is really helpful in establishing a great reputation among your clients. And I'm sure our listeners can learn a lot from your expertise in this area. And also because of your work with sort of the older generation and the way I work in my firm with that generation too, I just think although we work in very different fields, I just think there's a really interesting section that crosses over between our different fields of work. And I'd love to explore that further with you too in this chat. But to kick off this conversation, I'd like to go back in time, if that's okay. So, Tony, where did you grow up?
Hi, Amyr. First of all, thanks for inviting in the show. And hello to your listeners. Hello to some of my listeners. And yes, so I'm sure there's a lot of sort of synergy between what we do professionally and in our local area in Kingston. If I was to go back and about my sort of background, where did I grow up? I was born in a beautiful country, very small country most people haven't even heard of. It sounds like a very well-known place, but it's not. It's a country called Georgia, which is up in Caucasus, beautiful mountains. And I lived there until I was 14. And then for different reasons, somewhere sort of political, somewhere sort of personal. My dad had lived in UK already, and he invited us to come over and join him here in Britain. So very first time I arrived in UK was in Surbiton, landed in Heathrow, and this has been Surbiton, Kingston has been sort of home since age of 14. So I made my home. UK became my second home, and now I've lived here over half of my life. Yes.
Fantastic. And I'm sure that many of our listeners will know about Georgia. Anybody that follows the Olympics knows that Georgia has a very strong heritage in some of those Olympic sports, especially to some of which are to do with fitness, or at least a form of fitness in sort of lifting weights and on an Olympic scale and things like that. So, that's really interesting. And Tony, what did you study after secondary school?
So my passion was actually at the beginning was art. That's because I had the influence coming from quite a creative family. My dad is a journalist, art critic. My mom has worked in the film industry, sort of as a producer. So I actually enrolled myself for history of art to do my A-levels. And then there was actually a teacher. So if he's listening, Simon Winchcombe, he was a most wonderful man. He's still around. We actually message each other every so often. And I remember he he sat me down and told me this very carefully and said, Tony, look, you do sport really well. And we'd done rock climbing. He introduced me to rock climbing as a sort of activity and a sport. They were actually building a rock climbing wall in our sports college. So the college that I went to do my A-levels, I was quite good in the sports aspect. So he had really interesting courses. So yeah, then from then on, I listened to him, and that's when my journey into fitness and well-being, really understanding the human body, this sort of psychology behind exercise, connective tissue, and all sort of looking at the body as not just a physical thing, but actually a lot of environmental changes can affect the body and mind, of course. So that was my journey into fitness course. So from age of 17, and then I actually qualified as a level 2 sort of, there was typical training, an NVQ type of training that you go through, level 2 gym instructor course. And then, then I actually, luckily I won a scholarship to become a personal trainer. It was a selection process, and I went through out of 10,000 people. So I was told. Yes. And I then started to work in a very reputable local company, and the journey really started then. Yeah.
Fantastic. So going from working at a local reputable company, as you mentioned there, could you bring us to a little bit more to the present and tell us a little bit about your business today?
Sure. So I worked in a probably the largest health and fitness sort of luxury brand. The company. Am I allowed to mention the name?
Of course you are. Yeah.
Okay, so the company is called David Lloyd's. They are the largest providers of health and fitness, well-being, sort of spa areas. Different branches focus on sort of provide different sort of aspects of that as well. Tennis is one of them. And yeah, I actually started to volunteer. Because when I started to work there, I wasn't yet qualified, so I sort of got my foot in quite early in. And as soon as I qualified as a level 3 trainer, when I finished my scholarship, I went into the job. So I worked with the company for about 11, 12 years, and then about 3 years ago, on the side while I was still working at David Lloyd's, I noticed this sort of paradigm shift in the fitness industry where I was really never happy. I wouldn't say I wasn't happy. It's taught me so much about sort of humans, us, sort of relationships. I've always valued the relationships, and we've created friendships through my work. But one of the things that I noticed quite early on, there wasn't enough supply or enough classes or well-being programs tailored for seniors. And when I actually sat down with my manager, and I sort of pointed out, look, at least 50% of our membership is or are by over 60s. I know how people look at over 60s. I personally think 60s are new 50s now. So I have a belief where age is never really a barrier, but you can't really offer a typical body pump or just music or typical jump up and down high energy class to a 70-year-olds. And that's when I noticed there was a gap in the market, and it goes even way back. So I started a brand called Super Seniors Fitness, and I work around well-being and fitness, and also we've added a couple of years ago, we added the retreats, especially for age-specific trips abroad. So I've taken people of all ages, actually, which I'm happy to share more later stage, up in the mountains, in the Caucasus, and then we've stayed and we've experienced some amazing moments together. And those people have come back, and their journey they're carried on with, and we're still friends, and they're still part of my programs. And this goes way back 6, 7, 8 years ago now. Yeah.
That's fantastic, Tony. And again, as I mentioned at the top of the show, this is where I think there's just some interesting aspects of both our professions, as I said, in completely different fields, where I started relating to you immediately when we first met, which virtually, that is, of course, in this COVID lockdown world that we're still living in, which is this aspect of working with a generation that is older than you and I, right? So in my field, I specialize in retirement planning within the financial planning profession. The vast majority of my clients are age 50 and 55 and upwards. And I absolutely love working with folks around that age and older. But for me, that confidence, that calmness to work around people who are a lot older than me came because I hung around a lot when I was a kid with my grandfather. And I just loved every opportunity I got to hang around with him. They say you should never meet your heroes, really, but my grandfather was my hero, and it was just amazing to be able to be around him and just see him talking and see him working around the farm and dealing with things, and it was amazing. I just want, like, for you, what was it that made you think, okay, this is an interesting niche, and I actually want to work pretty much exclusively within it?
Yeah, it's a really, I mean, similar to you, actually. I think when I sort of look back and when it all started for me, it's very much like a cultural thing for me anyway. I think in Georgia, when I was growing up in Georgia, we have something called a Toastmaster. And when I analyze this now, it's very much like you're listening to your seniors. They stand up. There's some wine involved, of course, some good wine, of course, Georgian wine. And really, these people, as a child, you sit and listen to on the table. We share the same table, and might have guests. And really, my grandparents, especially my grandmother, became sort of, like you said, your heroes and people that sort of could even shape the rest of your life, And what happened? Unfortunately, my grandfather passed away. He passed away in a vineyard. That's something we sort of said. He passed away the place he loved the most, and so that left my grandmother on her own. And at the age of 11, I made a decision to quit school. And my grandmother lived about an hour and a half, about 170 miles away from the city where I lived, in the countryside. And I decided to become her sole carer at the age of 11. That sounds like crazy right now if you're listening this. What, 11? But I made that decision, and sort of my mom sort of understood. There was, of course, some help, but I was helping my grandmother from everything. She had sort of probably early stages, probably Alzheimer's and dementia, sort of age-related conditions. She was in her 80s. And we had most amazing time. And she told me the stories of her travels she's been to. Yeah, she was a head teacher, and that really, what I think got me. When I speak to somebody of older than me, of any age really, but in people in the 80s and 70s, 80s and 90s, and even hundreds now, because that's just my job. I talk to them like they are. I would talk to somebody of my age. I don't talk to them in specific language. I don't change my style. I speak to them how I speak to you now, So, and I think that helped me to connect with them at a level where we've become really good friends. And I'm actually very proud to say most of my good friends are in their 70s, 80s, and 90s now, And we check in, especially during this pandemic. The online video has become sort of go-to and sort of way. I've helped a lot of my clients set up on get them up to the speed of technology. Beginning of the whole lockdowns, I went round at least 10 of my clients and just made sure they had all the connectivity right stage, the software as well as the hardware. Yeah, and I think this generation actually doesn't want to be left behind, whether it's technologically or just the latest news, whichever way that might be. sometimes they just could be just shy of asking that sort of first question. So I think it's more of I think it could be a generational sort of, it's in fact, if you're listening this in your 30s and 40s, I think it's actually our moral responsibility to reach out to seniors, reach out to older neighbors. Perhaps you have mom, dad, parents, grandparents, and actually ask them what questions they might have, even however silly that might be, whether it's about well-being or sleep or mind or sometimes even spiritual, And I find the generation that sort of baby boomers and generation 70s and 80s people, they have awful lot of knowledge, and they and oftentimes amazing expertise from professional as well as life related. So who better not to take advice that somebody has done it, been through it, and could actually give you sort of that, or at least signpost you to the right direction. So if you're struggling with any sort of decision. So yeah, a lot of my friends, who I now lucky to call them clients, friends, they're my greatest advisors when it comes to sort of life matters decisions sometimes.
Yeah, 100%. I mirror what you said there. My experience is very similar, thankfully. And there's just, as you said, there's just so much to learn from real life experience from people who have been there, done that. And also, it's incredible how a lot of my clients who are have been very successful professionally and in life, they're also very much open to having a conversation where they learn from the younger generation too. That mutual respect is just something that I cherish. I cherish big time. So appreciate you sharing that. Tony, I just wanted to sort of start switching gears with you here slightly, because of course you deal in this field of fitness, and your niche in particular is over 60s, or over 60s, maybe not necessarily over 60s, but definitely senior citizens of some age. There's a mindset element to fitness and to keeping fit, right? And I just wanted you to share with us maybe some of your thoughts around, what do sort of seniors risk by not staying active?
It's a great question, and really decision. I'm not necessarily the one to tell them what their risk, but I'm a great believer of actually asking. I don't like to take as seniors as a one big sort of big category. I think I would actually ask them individually what's important to them and their longevity. Do they want to be fit, active, alive, and feeling sort of pain-free in their late? I mean, it's one of those areas that I think if earlier you start sort of understanding your movement, your body, and there's enough science actually that you could, I can actually look at somebody's, how they walk, for example, and actually almost, I wouldn't tell them straight away, but I can actually give them ideas, what things that they could be doing, and sort of prevent some of this, like a really painful, like a life-threatening pain. I wouldn't say life-threatening, but really life in activity inhabiting pains, like a knee pain, hip pain. So really understanding what's important to them, because let's be honest, not everybody cares about their longevity. Let's just be honest. And yeah. I think if somebody that does, just sort of take a step back and analyzing what's important to them, and nobody wants to be told what to do more 10 push-ups and run faster. And I think it's a very much individual journey. Then later, as they build up, as my clients build up their fitness, they can really, really explore different types of activities. So I personally don't think one approach works for everybody. And to answer your question directly, what do they miss out? My answer is straightforward. Simply, what's more valuable than longer life or health? Longer life is, we can look at it differently, but the quality of the life we have. So essentially, we'll miss out quality, and rather than spending time waiting your doctors and booking your appointments, why not invest time, energy, and I guess your time, energy, and your focus into something in your early 60s, 70s, which actually there's been so many studies that proves the point. If early you start into health and fitness, well-being in general, so make sure you're sitting upright. So simple things like that. And you don't necessarily need to be, I don't actually promote any gym. You don't need to be a member of a gym or any sort of fitness or well-being club. You can do so many things from your own bedroom, from your living room. And my programs I offer sort of foundation programs, people that can train from their living room and with a very minimal equipment. Okay, you can buy skipping rope. You can buy, anybody will have a grandchild, and then they might even give you some of the it's very simple. If you don't have any weights, you can even use cans of beans or things that just, you don't, on what I'm really trying to say, that doesn't need to be fancy. It doesn't need to be expensive. Money should never be a barrier to start investing in your health and well-being.
Absolutely. And especially
and early you do that, what you prevent is pain-free life, potentially, at least. Why not try it?
Yeah. And especially when you approach it in the sense that you mentioned there, Tony, which is as an investment, both some of which is of course in terms of money, but also some of it which is in terms of mindset, right? Investing to get the fitness and well-being habit formed into one's life, even if it's simple body weight only exercises at home, as you said, all the way to the other end of the scale, which is joining an expensive gym for folks that, you know, that's the approach they want to take. I wanted to pick your brains on that just slightly further, because of course many of our listeners will be older, and many of our listeners have actually taken exercise and fitness to become a habit in their life, especially over these last 12 to 14 months when we've been in and out of these lockdowns because of the COVID pandemic. Tony, what are some of the precautions that you think seniors should make when exercising?
Yeah, it's actually the daily conversations that I have right now, especially things are opening up. And as you mentioned, we're coming out of another long sort of lockdown. So first of all, it's always one thing that I've noticed, and this probably goes people of all ages actually, this whole COVID-19 situation has made all of us realize how important good quality health is, you know, and that's proven sort of enhanced the sort of, probably made people question, okay, what is more important than my own health? So why not really take another look, or at least give it another chance, whether it's going for extra walk or just spending time doing some simple exercises from home. What I would say from the conversations I'm having right now, especially if you are a person that's deciding to join up a club, whether it's tennis or in a gym or swimming club, remember, a lot of us have been at home, haven't been as actively as you might have been even last year or a year ago, if that's the case. So I would actually approach quite slowly, one step at a time. And if you've been a member of a fitness club, you used to go regular basis, 3-4 times a week. Now that the gyms are opening up and that there's more access to the sport, even now, go slower. If you used to have a 1 hour sessions or workout exercises, do it half an hour. At least next 4 weeks, my advice would be take it easy, but because body, it's documented, we lose cardiovascular fitness within 3 weeks, strength within even 2. Okay, so, but it does, one of the beautiful things of a human body, we can because we have the foundation already, we can rebuild the strength very quickly. We can rebuild the cardiovascular fitness very quickly. So whatever stage that you might be, whether you're sort of contemplating to take up extra activity, now we're able to do that, whether it's indoors or outdoors, just take your time. It's not a race. Last thing I want any of your listeners to experience is a long-term injury. I'm talking about muscular injury, which oftentimes could be quite a long periods of inactivity, or could even be a certain more serious type of injury related sort of accident. So yeah, my advice would be go easy, and we're in it for long term, and rebuild that fitness up again slowly.
Yeah, those are fantastic tips. And that mindset of it's a marathon, not a sprint, it applies to so much in life. And the beauty of it is that, as you said, there's numerous studies in many fields. Of course, we're talking about fitness here, where that mentality of treating it as a marathon, as something that compounds slowly week by week, is super, super beneficial. So appreciate you sharing that, Tony. Tony, we connected through Instagram initially, where I noticed that you regularly add tips for your audience on how to keep fit and healthy. Could you share with us some of your favorite tips today?
Sure. I mean, I'm again, advice that I give to social media to what I would do to my one-to-one client might be more specific and directed to that person. But I like to keep it really simple. 3, and my advice is keep three simple steps. Enjoy nature. Enjoy if we have people around us. Enjoy your surroundings, the environment, and I'd say do one thing you may not feel comfortable doing, or you've always want and just explore new things. So it's be out, explore nature, enjoy your surroundings right now, and explore something new. And that could be sort of lead to many different things. So in terms of, I'm more than happy to give any specific. I don't like to give any sort of nutritional advice, because again, if you're not a nutritionist or dietitian, which I'm not, I don't like to offer any sort of nutritional advice. Although I'm very passionate about health, sort of nutrition itself. I have an allotment, and I grow a lot of my vegetables and sort of products I use for my own sort of own education, as well as seasonal dishes. So, but yes, if it's a nutrition, so everybody has to have some sort of starting point. So whatever that might be, I would say, challenge yourself slowly, step by step. Whether it's learning a new skill. So I would say if you want to learn to swim, for example, whatever age you might be. By the way, I have amazing stories. People in the 80s learning to take up swimming. And they've learned at the age of 80. Can you imagine, right?
Amazing.
So, and whether it's learned how to, it has to be, an environment has to be safe, of course. I think if you can do that, like learn how to skip, for example, learn how to do learn how to balance on one leg, learn how to breathe properly. All of us breathe, let's be honest. We do it. It's an involuntary thing we all do. However, I wouldn't challenge you, but I would invite you to stop. If you're listening this right now, take a moment and take 5 deep breaths, like really, as if you really mean it. As if you do it right now, you can even do it. So if you inhale deep and then breathe out, exhale, really get the lungs to work efficiently, and then ask yourself the difference. Like, wow, the extra oxygen and sort of I just put into my body, I just gets you. So if you ever feel like you're becoming a bit sleepy, or I actually, if you're nodding off while you're listening to us, whether you're driving or if you're sitting on your couch, I invite you to actually stop and take this 5 deep breaths and see how you feel afterwards. And let us perhaps message you or let us know, let me know how you felt after you've done that. So my advice is, look, you don't need to be running marathons, you don't need to be an Olympic champion. It's our own race, it's our own journey, and you can dictate whichever way you want to take. I've got some. I've about 5 years ago, I set myself a challenge. It was an exercise that I was working on personally. It's called human flag. It's actually one of the oldest exercises, where you go horizontal on a vertical pole. When I learned this exercise, then I thought, you know what? One of the things I really like is traveling. I want to travel the entire world and perform a human flag on behind, I don't know, like, for example, if I've traveled to Paris and behind Eiffel Tower, I did so recognizable human flag so people can guess. So that's my own journey,
Yeah.
I know however silly that might sound, that your reason to stay fit might be very different. It could be just running. You want to stay alive and fit and agile to run around with your grandchildren, once the weather's nice, once we come out of this whole COVID situation, we can hug them and just be there for them.
Yeah.
Or it could just be something else. You become better gardening, or become better carrying shopping, for example. Yeah. So I don't really like to give specific advice to everybody, because I think there is a lot to be said about what individual likes. So but exploring, asking simple questions. I would invite you to do that.
Yeah, and I think that's absolutely perfect. I would say this, Tony. For me, working with retirees with their financial planning, it always is about something else apart from the money. When we give them the money peace of mind that they're looking for, it really becomes all about empowering them to live an amazing life in this chapter that they're in at the moment, and progressing through that chapter in a healthy way, in a way that creates mental well-being, and that allows them to really, really focus on those three things that you mentioned, because all of us have so much to be grateful for if we just look hard enough, and starting by appreciating the nature around us. Kingston and the surrounding areas is just beautiful. Appreciating the surroundings, our family surroundings or our neighbors, more than we have before. And then finally, being able to, in my case, what I see a lot is seeing people be able to tick off some of those to-dos that they've had sometimes for years and years and years. And because of work and commuting and everything else, they never really got a chance to give it a go. And I think what you spoke about there is so beautiful, because the fitness itself, the keeping fit, the actually creating a routine, the going through that routine on a day-by-day, a week-by-week basis, it actually very quickly doesn't become about that at all, because that is the enabler for them to be able to play with and lift up their grandchildren, or for them to be able to live more independently, or for them to be able to have independence for longer. And I think that's what we're getting to here, isn't it? The conversations that we get to have with our respective clients, very quickly, the thing we do is just an enabler for the actual life aspect that they want to achieve. And I think that's just marvelous. And Tony, for me, that's really interesting, because again, one of the goals of the Inside Kingston podcast is to create a platform for all of these amazing businesses and professionals and community leaders that we have in the area to be able to tell their story, and with a view that they can create those inter-neighborhood, inter-community connections, not only between the guests of the show, which I'm very, very proud to say has happened more than once now, but of course amongst their clients, and actually getting their clients to see their business and the businesses around them as a community that they can be part of, that they can cherish, that they can help grow, and that can influence their lives positively by getting them to meet other local people, spark friendships, etc., etc. So I really like the way you positioned it there, and I'm guessing that's what you see from the different people that join your programs within the community as well.
In terms of the community spirit, it's absolutely, but it probably has if you're a business owner and you're listening to this show, and it's absolutely, I mean, what's better than having your customers talk about you in outside when they're having their coffees, or like when they're outside. And I mean, we've had some amazing stories on our program where people have built their personal friendships and relationships, where they've actually they've met on an exercise program, they've been together on one of my retreats, wellbeing retreats, and now, because they are local, they know each other, they even have a mutual friends. They've had the conversations, and they've actually gone and supported each other, whether, especially during now, where they've offered each other to do shopping for each other, for example, grocery shopping, or just a simple phone call, how's everything going? And I think as a business owner, to have even 1%, one crystal into that making of that relationship, I think it's just amazing. It just gives me amazing pleasure and a joy to be part of that very organic friendship. So in a way, that's been my driving. One thing that I would actually encourage all businesses to focus on building that, not just offering a great service, which should be given anyway, is what you do to create a community aspect, whether it's doing quarterly or annual get-togethers with our clients. And I organize, when things will go back to normal, I organize and like a quarterly tea catch-ups. And then we do, and where sometimes I go and offer people some technology support over while we're having tea, so that's typically with one of our clients' houses, and sometimes we even rotate, so really building that community spirit. It actually goes beyond just customer service, and actually could be the start of a great brand.
Yeah, that's absolutely fantastic. Tony, what are some of the key business lessons you've learned throughout your life?
Ooh, on my failures, things that I thought that would work. Look, I think a lot of business failures, or I guess a lot of business lessons that I can learn from. They're actually not just business lessons. They're probably a bit more personal as well. So I've learned that I think business, and if especially a business owner, you run whether medium, small or large business, I think a lot of those lessons are not just business related, where you conduct yourself around your home, for example, how you do one thing, how you do everything. That's my philosophy anyway. But my lessons are just, I wouldn't do business with anybody that I wouldn't want to sit down and have a tea or coffee or maybe glass of wine. So if something feels and something, when you get the gut instinct, or I'm not saying you should do everything by your hunch or how you feel, but if let's say if you engage, whether you're service business or product business, doesn't really matter. I think it's the same, because we all spend our energy, create something and offer this to public or local area. And if something feels iffy or unnatural, just call it out, because it can later on, it can say, and that's my philosophy. So one lesson perhaps I would give to anybody: if it doesn't feel right, have that conversation with the client, whether the client is an individual or the big company or small company. So and as a business, we have to solve problems, and it could just be something really simple we can fix right from the go, or it could be something from a client's point of view. We just need to take extra time and just tailor that. So for example, if my clients need certain approaches or frequent breaks during these sessions, I give them that. I don't train them like I used to train a 20-year-old, for example. So it's just really understanding their needs. And as a business, then somebody who cares, and we should all do, we sort of adapt. And I think being adaptable is the is my advice to today. Yeah,
absolutely. And when you look back at
how quickly can you adapt to that?
Oh yeah, big time. And I think it's Charles Darwin that said, isn't it, that it's not the strongest who survive, it's the ones that are most quickly to adapt. So that is for sure a very good life lesson. When you look back at your career journey to date, what are you most proud of?
Wow, that's a good question, actually. I think you know what I'm proud of the most? That's quite a good question. It's quite something I haven't really thought about, I guess. However, there's a particular moment that happened in 2012, and if I can quickly share that. Is that okay if I share that?
Please do, absolutely.
Yeah. So I worked at a local day center where I actually volunteered a couple of hours a week. It was 2 days a week, actually. And these people were local residents of a day, and they came round and they had the teas, coffees, and they had their lunch. And I actually went in to just offer them a keep fit sort of movement class. And there was this particular guy, a man, 87-year-old John. And I've always sort of, you build that relationship individually as a group, and there's a rapport building, of course. Either way, they look at you. There's this 20-odd-year-old guy goes in, tries something new and doesn't work, or sometimes they look at you suspiciously. What does this? Is this a guy that wants to just get me sweating? Who, by the way, is not the most enjoyable thing if you're 87, perhaps, unless you're like a typical super senior, like you used to getting out and going for a run and so. But what I'm really trying to say, this particular man, 87-year-old John, and I remember it was time of the Olympics. It was summer. And it was a hot day, and I went in, and we actually practicing. So we replicating similar events that would have been in the Olympics. So we're doing some balance, like standing on one leg, throwing into a target. For example, I replicate some archery, and so on. And you could see these people come alive. And the moment I actually offered. I don't know how I thought of it. I actually offered John. There was other people, of course, in this day center, about 20 people in the class, and I actually offered John because I noticed he was disengaging from it a little bit, and I said, "Look, John, let's do an arm wrestling. How do you feel about that?" And you can imagine everybody sort of popped their ears, as they say, and everybody sort of looked at us and thought, "Okay, are they actually going to do it?" And do you know what he said straight away? Go on, son, let's do it. And then I realized, oh my God, what have I just put myself into? And everybody's sort of getting excited to watch us take a position. And there's actually a picture of us doing this as well. At that moment, John actually sort of looked through my, when you remember something so well. And that was the moment. And I said. And he said to me, "Tony, when you're here, I don't feel I'm 87." And at that moment, I sort of almost was that's where it sort of made sense for me, because these people, body might be 87, however, mind never gets old. And that's a really good place to exploring new things, I know that with just one arm wrestle, John wasn't going to become a super strong or superhuman. However, we don't need to be super, and the name of my brand is called Super Seniors, and I don't think we can be supers without a sort of cape and superpowers, because life brings on so many challenges and grief. And when you understand when you live on this planet a long time, you're going to lose for your friends, relatives, sometimes your closest partners and children, which is always a difficult thing to overcome. But I think having the mindset of overcoming challenges, life challenges, sometimes it's environmental challenges. So I'm really passionate about helping as many seniors to sort of think, let's overcome and look at it from do a bit of self-reflection and maybe self-assessment and see how we can move on forwards, because it's all going to stop one day. Let's be honest. You and I are going to get to a stage where we might look at, okay, what could I have done differently? I don't want people. I guess my mission is people to say, do you know what? I've lived my life and I've lived it well, and I might have made some decisions might not have been best, but overall it was great. So I think that's a good. It's a good enough for me anyway to be a driving of my brand, and I wake up every morning and tell myself how I can help one person, not 1,000. I mean, I have a goal that I want to help 10,000 people in this year, 2021. But that may happen, that may not. But every morning I wake up and tell myself, who can I help? One person I can help one day, and that's been since the lockdowns and even before. That's been my sort of mojo for my mornings. And anyway, whether it's just a simple message or actually doing a Zoom call or phone call and actually offering somebody a helping hand.
That's fantastic, Tony. And I thought your story there was really beautiful. And for our listeners that are with us up until this point, check out the picture on social media. You're gonna get a good laugh. I bet John gave you a hard time with that arm wrestle too. I don't care what you say, Tony.
No, he won.
There we go. Tony, what next for you and your business? Are there any projects in the pipeline that you can tell us about?
Yes, I mean, there are a few projects that we're working on. So during this pandemic, I've launched quite a successful local sort of fitness program. It's called Super 6. It's actually a foundation program for super seniors, which I encourage everybody to have a look. And it goes through sort of the foundations of health, correct warm-ups, things that will help you to improve your balance, mobility, strength, and just really going over sort of correct science as well as a bit of education, because we're never too old to learn, and then you can then apply that to your own routine. So it's a online program, and the classes are recorded, and then I'm very keen to take that on to at a larger scale and offer the not just our Kingston community, but take it beyond London and even UK.
That's phenomenal. Exciting times ahead.
You can only hope now.
Good. Tony, as we start to wrap up, I'd like to ask you a few quick fire questions that our listeners are always interested in. So what do you do to relax outside of the office?
I go for 5-mile walk.
That sounds lovely. And actually, the number of guests here on the show, Tony, over this last 14 months that have taken up walking and at the same time gained a new appreciation for the sort of Kingston area is amazing.
Mm-hmm. It's amazing. Including so many of people like myself, I guess, I've explored so many new places. Some have just been an advice from my friends and clients. Home Park, Richmond Park. We have we're so lucky to have this wonderful nature around us, and let's appreciate that. And yeah, that's one of the best forms of, I call it like a brain cleansing, not just a body cleansing. That's obviously other. So I think for walking for me has been great for body and mind.
Fantastic. And are there any books that you've recently read that you'd recommend to our listeners?
Well, I'm a keen reader. Perhaps, I mean, yes, I have two. If you come from, I'm not gonna give a non sort of fiction advice, although sort of if that's what you like, you can contact me and I can give you that sort of recommendations. But two books really made a difference in business for me. one of them, one of the books that I've read a few years ago, and there's one that I always keep going to, is E-Myth Revisited by Michael E. Gerber. It's a book that kind of applies to, I think it applies to even life, but it's not a new book. It's quite an old book, and it's one. If you haven't read it, I do encourage you to take a look at it, whether it's book form or now everybody seems to be listening on audible form. So either way, I have both, and I listen to that, and business lessons from here, and how you run whether small, big, or medium-sized business. Some great lessons. And the second book I would recommend, probably I read this book about a year ago by Donald Miller, and the title of the book is Building a Story Brand. And if you are in a service or product industry, if most listeners, if you're into sort of business element and you want to create your own business one day, if you're thinking of if you have an idea or ideas, this would be a really good book to put your thoughts in a nice framework, and somewhere you could actually explain your business message a more sort of tangible and sort of relatable way for your customers and probably even investors.
Absolutely. And I second both of those books. They are both very, very good and really relevant to any of our small business owner listeners. Are there any movies or TV shows that you've recently watched that you'd recommend to our listeners?
I don't watch TV, just for your listeners' information. I don't watch. I don't own TV by choice, not because I don't want to pay TV license, but the last 3 years I haven't owned a TV. So some great movies, of course. I've recently really got into listening or watching old movies for recommendation of my girlfriend, and she likes watching sort of old French movies and some Russian movies, some interesting ones there, Italian movies, so like not just foreign, but I would urge somebody to pull out a black and white movie and just watch any would do, but I would. I think during this lockdown I've discovered a love for old films.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm with you there. I'm a fan of old movies and movies where they had to focus on the story more than on any special effects that they had available at the time. So since you didn't give a name there for a movie, I'll go ahead and I'll give one that I think fits the bill, Tony. And I'll go with The Seventh Seal. And I'll just say that, and I'll let any of our listeners who are interested in knowing more to Google it and sort of take it from there. Finally, where can people go to find out more about you and your business?
Oh, that's really simple. Super Seniors Fitness everywhere. We have a mojo of Age No Barrier. So if you search in Google, #Age No Barrier, you should be able to find more about my business. And that's all. superseniorsfitness.com is the website. Super Seniors Fitness is the Instagram. And Age No Barrier #.
Fantastic. And for the benefit of our listeners, I'll make sure that I add the links there to our show notes. Tony, thank you for joining us here on the Inside Kingston podcast. It's been a pleasure getting to know your story.
Oh, thank you. I really enjoyed talking to you, and good luck with everything.
That wraps up another episode of the Inside Kingston podcast. Make sure to check out our guests' website, pay them a visit, and help spread the word about what they're doing. If you have any questions or know someone who should be a guest on the show, please feel free to get in touch. I would also love it if you could go to iTunes and leave us a review and a 5-star rating. We work hard to bring on some great guests, and getting a review from you is one way to help the podcast rate well on iTunes so that others can find and enjoy the show too. Thanks for listening.